We have spent most of our lives following syllabus, school syllabus or university syllabus. Someone else always decides what is important, what is valuable, and what is worth knowing. But at some point, I realized that no one gives you a syllabus for the person that you want to be. So instead of setting resolution or chasing aesthetic goals I know I won't remember by February, I decided to do something quieter. I made a personal curriculum. Hello and welcome back to Novel Notes. If you have been on the internet over the past couple of years, you would have seen this concept of a personal curriculum. A personal curriculum is not a productivity system. It's not about reading faster or doing more. It's about the direction. It's me choosing deliberately what kind of reader, thinker, and scholar I aspire to be. As a literature student, as someone who is preparing for a PhD, as someone who believes reading is the way of thinking, I don't want my reading to feel accidental anymore. I want it to feel coherent. Like the books I read, ideas that I engage with, and the questions I ask are all moving towards the same direction. Reading sits at the center of my curriculum, but not any random reading. This year, I'm not chasing numbers, I'm chasing depth. I'm reading in clusters, texts that talk to each other, argue with each other, and sometimes completely contradict each other. My focus areas are going to be literary theory and criticism, philosophy, feminist thought, political and dystopian fiction, and canonical rereads. Some books will be slow, some books will demand rereading, and some books will make me uncomfortable. And to me, that discomfort is a sign that real learning is happening. The books in my curriculum are not chosen for comfort, they are chosen for formation. I'm starting with poetics, not as a rigid rule book, but as a way of understanding why stories endure, why structures matter, and why tragedy still moves us. Alongside that, I am reading literary criticism, essays like Hamlet and His Problems to understand how scholars argue with texts and not just admire them. This is me learning how to think about literature and not just to feel it. I'm going to also be reading texts that will sit at an intersection of literature, politics, and power. Books like The Prince and The Art of War by Machiavelli. These books I'm reading not to glorify control, but to understand how authority is written, justified, and resisted. These texts sharpen the way I read political fiction and dystopias because fictional power is never really fictional. Feminist theory will be a core part of my personal curriculum, and who better to start this off with than Virginia Woolf? A Room of One's Own teaches me to think about space, intellectual, creative, and material. Book like The Mad Woman in the Attic helps me reread the canon by asking who was silenced. Why does the madness become the only language available to many women? And how can we talk about feminist books without talking about the second sex? This book reminds me that literature never really exists out of society. It reflects it, resists it, and sometimes exposes it. To hold all of this together, I will be grounding myself into literary history through a history of English literature. Because once you know where a text is coming from, you will understand what it says differently. Literature cannot exist outside philosophy, it just hides it better. My curriculum includes thinkers who are demanding, uncomfortable, and deeply human. I will be starting with Immanuel Kant, particularly his critique of pure reason. Not because it's easy, but because it teaches discipline. Kant forces me to slow down and ask fundamental questions. How do we know what we know? He teaches me that reason has its limit, that the mind shapes the knowledge, and the confusion is sometimes the part of understanding. Reading Kant isn't about the agreement, it's about patience, learning to follow an argument carefully without rushing to conclusions. Alongside Kant, I will be reading Nietzsche, almost as a counterbalance. Through Thus Spoke Zarathustra and Beyond Good and Evil, I'm learning to question morality, belief, and inherited truths. Nietzsche sharpens skepticism but also responsibility. And then there's Fyodor Dostoevsky, where philosophy lives inside the character. Books like Notes from the Underground and The Brother Karamazov explore guilt, faith and rebellion, and the terrifying freedom of choice. These books remind me that ideas are never abstract. They have lived, suffered, and argued through human beings. And to support this curriculum, I will be maintaining a separate diary specifically for this project. This diary is not going to be aesthetic, it's not going to be curated, it is not meant to be shared. It is where I will argue with the authors, write half formed thoughts, and ask questions I don't yet have answers to, and track how my thinking changes over time. Some entries are going to be messy, some are confused, and some are just going to be frustration on paper. This diary might be accessed to 10 times in a day and might be left untouched for months. But this is a diary where reading is going to turn into thinking, and slowly that thinking will become scholarship. This is my personal curriculum. It will evolve, it will break, I will rewrite it. But for now, this is how I'm choosing to read, to think, and learn.